Writers in Training, this is Shanon writing under the pen name of S.T. Houston, and today I'm putting out a call for readers for my work in progress, A Curse of Scales and Feathers, a fantasy romance novel that will be part of a series called Brides of the Dragon Kings. It's Ares' destiny to be sacrificed to the ice dragon, but she finds out this means marrying the Dragon King. Cursed to marry a bride by chance, King Caldon risks death and destruction if he doesn't follow the rules. Can they tame their beast within enough to find common ground and maybe even love? Next is a reading of the prologue from Caldon's point of view. If you'd rather read the prologue or read it along with the audio, you can find a link in the description box below. Also in the description box is a link to a form to sign up as a reader. I'm actually looking for several different types of readers, so maybe there's one that interests you. Now here's the beginning of the novel. A Curse of Scales and Feathers by S.D. Houston. Prologue. Caldon. Caldon felt a gentle but firm hand on his shoulder. For hours he'd not moved, his head bent over his hands where they rested on the bed next to his dead wife. Behind closed eyelids he could still see the light in her amber eyes. No one should see that light go out. A moment when the person you knew no longer existed within the body next to you. But he's seen it over 24 times now. Your Majesty, you have visitors. Caldon frowned over Bryn's words. With a sigh, he lifted his head to look at her. The brightness of the blazing fireplace pierced his eyes. Strange to hear you address me as so. Only a slight narrowing of Bryn's golden eyes revealed any emotions on her smooth, ageless face. She had been his nanny and had never used his formal title. If she used any at all with him, it had always been brat. You've mourned her enough. Time to see to your brothers. They won't be able to wait much longer. She looked over her shoulder to peer out the open double doors where summer's heat hung like a wet blanket in the air. Beyond the balcony, night's dark shroud lightened by increments. Dawn was coming. After following her gaze, Caldon rubbed a hand over his face. He should be crying. Mira, his wife, had been one of his favorites. He was tired of this charade, this cycle of marrying and outliving his wives. The insanity and unfairness of his situation hardened his heart, so that tears refused to come. Coldness settled over his shoulders. But he could handle the cold. He was made for the cold. Caldon. Bryn's stern voice shifted through his thoughts. With a nod, he touched Mira's bronze hand one last time. The warmth of her life was gone. Now her cold fingers matched what he felt inside. He strode out onto the covered balcony, humid air sticking to his skin. 2 men turned to look at him. Physically, he looked much like his brothers, all with the same long noses and wide mouths. They all also had blue eyes, but the variation in color differed between them. And one brother was missing. They hadn't seen their older brother in almost 1,000 years. Rin knew better to stay away. So foolish of them to come. But he couldn't summon the will to say as much to his brothers. He was truly happy to see them. He smiled. Edmar, slim-bodied with blue-green eyes that reminded Caldon of the ocean, was the first to swing an arm around his shoulders, pulling him into a tight hug. We are sorry for your loss. A rush of emotions welled up within Caldon, and he stiffened, yanking the cold back to him. His voice barely registered above a whisper as he pulled away. It never gets easier. Zane cocked his head, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Caldon couldn't remember his youngest brother ever taking anything seriously. Zane boldly faced the world with a laugh and a smile as if everything was one big joke or a game. Zane held the smile as he spoke. That's why you're not supposed to get attached to them. The curse never said we had to love them. Caldon crossed arms with Zane so they gripped each other's forearms in greeting. Being the shortest brother, Zane packed his frame with muscle, a sign that he did work at something in his life. Caldon wondered if Zane cared more than he let on. That's cruel, brother. Zane gripped his arm harder, and surprisingly, his nonchalant attitude dropped as if it was an act he constantly played. His dark brows slashed down together. The world is cruel. Do you really think she meant for the curse to be broken? No. We are to suffer, but I refuse. Caldon wondered if Zane wasn't right. Right about not getting attached. Right about the curse not ever being broken. He didn't think he could bear another loss. The first rays of a morning sun breached the horizon, but clouds gathered overhead, thick and gray. A cool wind replaced summer's kissing heat. Caldon peered up at the sky. While I appreciate your concern, it's too dangerous for us to be together. Strengthening, the wind swept through the courtyard below them with the sound of a low moan. It was enough to send shivers through Caldon where the cold hadn't affected him. Edmar stood between his brothers. He was the one who held them together when their world crashed 1,000 years ago, and they'd lost everyone they loved except each other. We wanted to show our support and to remind you not to give up. Losing other wives had sent Calden into a state of despair, and Calden had truly been fond of Mira. He swallowed his feelings, letting the cold etch his face into hard planes. Then he noticed the back of Edmar's hands were teal scales layered over his powdery blue skin. Zane noticed them too. "You're one to talk. You haven't married in almost 3 years, and you're letting the beast take over." A shine of excitement entered Edmar's eyes. "I think I might have found her. She's a merfolk." Zane laughed. "Didn't you think your last wife could break the curse? Your romantic notions won't make any of them the one." Edmar's response was lost in a jagged streak of lightning, followed by a long, low peal of thunder. They all looked to the horizon. They could feel the change coming, even if the sun hadn't shown itself yet. Calden narrowed his eyes on Zane. "What about you? You throw away your marriages like the stripped bones of sheep." Zane only smiled. Calden would have scowled if he could find it in himself to be upset with him. Instead, he said to Edmar, "I'm happy to hear of your fortune. What's her name?" Edmar shifted on his feet. "I don't know." Zane clapped him on the back, teeth flashing in his wide smile. "In love with an unknown creature from the sea. Now there's a story for you." Edmar ran a hand through his dark brown hair, his eyes on the stone floor of the balcony. "I haven't found her exactly. She saved me from drowning, but I passed out, and I've been searching for her ever since." He looked up at Zane. "I wish you would try. We all need to do our part to break the curse." An uncharacteristic shadow flashed in Zane's eyes, but it was quickly gone, and he was back to smiling. "I'm trying, but it's hard to be serious about finding a love by chance when the Fire Fae are building forces again. I smell another war." Unfortunately, when they split the kingdom between the 4 of them to put distance between each other, and Zane had taken the southern portion of the continent, they hadn't known the Fire Fae would attempt to invade. The Fae's kingdom lay only a few days' sail from Aegondra's southern shores. So far, Zane had kept the Fire Fae from making it past his borders. But Calden recalled a conversation with his youngest brother. "Have you relinquished control of your throne?" Zane bowed, flourishing a cloak he didn't wear. "I have, your majesty. I am no longer the ruling king, but a king in name only. A council elected by my citizens make the decisions." A corner of Calden's mouth pulled down. Swirling wind now curled over the balcony and rushed at them. Calden leaned against it, a force that would have swept a human back into the castle. When the wind passed, he frowned at Zane. "Do you think that is wise?" Zane danced a quick jig. "We all gotta take a little time to have some fun, don't we? Otherwise we'll go insane with this curse." Thunder rumbled in the sky as more than one jagged lightning streaked across the land. Edmar was the first to turn away from the quickly coming storm. "If you could just be sincere for once, maybe we might eventually break this curse." Zane opened his mouth to say something, but Calden put a hand on both of his brother's shoulders. He knew they could feel the tingling beneath their skins, too. "I think it's time you both left." His pointed look drew their gaze to the sky. Just as they each turned a face upward, pelting rain slashed diagonally across the courtyard. The rain was bone-chilling, and within moments it turned into sleet. The timing of the storm with sunrise made his brother's departure easier. The sun bowed its head over the horizon. Wasting no more time, he shoved both of his brothers forward as he felt the change. His brothers looked at him hesitantly, probably knowing the melancholy that would follow. But they couldn't stay, and they knew that. He didn't wait to see them take off, knowing that they were leaving now, the storm dissipating and their departure in summer returning to the land. Instead, he went to his lair, his mind already tumbling through the list of things he needed to do for his 47th wife's funeral. Have her body washed and dressed in new clothes, prepare the funeral pyre, let the staff go. He wouldn't need them now if he didn't plan to marry again. He was so tired of needing a wife. He tired of the curse and its rules. He really didn't think there was a way out, and he didn't think he could bear losing another woman he loved. Zane had it right with not getting attached, but Calden couldn't just throw away women the way his brother did. That left him with a bleak future. One that was lonely. If you found the beginning of A Curse of Scales and Feathers interesting and would like to help me make this the best story possible, please sign up on the form found in the description box below. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and happy writing.